Welcome to Hardware Asylum. We're back working on the Primo case build. For those of you just joining us, this is my Pentium 3 Baby AT gaming rig put into a mini tower. This is a chassis that I cleaned up in a previous video, and also this build was in a separate video. We'll put links to those down in the show notes below, or maybe in the little card in the corner or something. Now I wanted to wrap up a few of the loose ends with this particular build, and I want to start with a comment that I got in the previous video when we did the build about how my SATA drive was connected to the machine. I purposely left out the storage options in this build because honestly I was having a heck of a time getting any sort of a drive to work in this computer. Storage and hard drive size has been a problem with the Intel 440BX, mostly with the slot 1 systems. During this time we had a rampant increase in hard drive compatibility, hard drive size, hard drive speed. Our onboard controller was ATA33, so you could plug in an ATA66 or 100 drive, but it's not going to go any faster. I also had a bias limitation that topped out the hard drives at around 32, 36, somewhere in that range. So any hard drive plugged in that was larger than that, there was a certain amount of the drive that would just not be accessible. So you could have a 100, 200 gig drive, but only 30 gigabytes would be usable. The easy way around that is to use an external controller. I had already showed you the Fast Track 100 that I used when testing these boards. I also have a bunch of controllers in my collection that I've used over the years, including a Fast Track 100 TX2, Fast Track 66, and maybe one of the coolest RAID 5 controllers is the Fast Track TX4310. This will do software RAID 5. There's no onboard memory or onboard processor, so all the storage processing is done on the CPU side of things, making this controller somewhat limited in old computers and those not running an NT operating system. So I tried a variety of options to try to get around the storage problem with this particular build. I wanted to have a fast storage subsystem, but I didn't want to have any IDE hard drives, so these guys were out. I don't have any other PCI expansion card aside from this Promise card, so I plugged this in. Turns out that I could get a Windows 98 driver, but every time that I accessed the drive, the system would hang for an indefinite amount of time. Sometimes it would be okay until maybe the onboard buffer filled up, and other times it would just kind of sit there and not do anything at all. So that's when I started to go back to an original adapter that I used once on a Pentium Pro system using this very SSD. And I use it quite often here on the bench because it's very flexible. And we'll go ahead and get that out of the system and I'll show it to you. This adapter right here is the best one that I've found that works with Retro PC. I've used on every one of the boards that I've tested in the Hardware Asylum labs. And it is the adapter that saved this build. And what's cool about it is that it's dual-ended. So on one side you have your IDE interface, on the other side you have two SATA interfaces. Depending on which one of these SATA ports you use dictates what direction the data will go. So for instance, when I have it plugged into the motherboard header on the IDE like this, connect the SATA port here, and that will allow me to connect SATA drives to that controller. If I plug this into an IDE hard drive, I use this port, now allow me to hook up IDE hard drives to a SATA interface. The other nice thing about this controller is that once I hooked it up to the 36 gig Raptor, had the bus mastering drivers installed in Windows 95, I was able to enable DMA, and the performance of this drive and this controller went off the charts, satisfying the speedy storage solution that I was looking for this particular build. So let's go ahead and get the Primo build finished up with a few of the other upgrades that I have planned. go ahead and run a few quick storage benchmarks. I'm going to be using an old version of Sysoft Sandra for this, and it's an application that I've been using on Hardware Asylum and Ninja Lane for pretty much the very beginning. The first screenshot is with the DMA disabled within Windows 98. We have a drive index of 6395 kilobytes per second. And of course, when we enable DMA, we have a drive index of 20,684 kilobytes per second. So as you can see, enabling DMA can increase performance considerably, which is why you need to have the proper adapters if you want to get the best performance. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one.